I'm like wandering everywhere. I've done like 2 videos so far, and I just did them, and I don't know what they're called. um, However, we're honing in here. Ego is the title of this video, or something related to that. What is the role of the ego, and what is not the role of the ego? Your ego is your sense of self by definition. However, in practice, it's a lot bigger of a beast. Uh, what do I mean by this? Your ego and yourself are two different entities. Who you are and who you think you are not necessarily the same thing. Um, who you are and who you strive to be are not necessarily the same thing. Um, and your ego can be beneficial or detrimental. And I realize that's always based on perspective, but perspective is based on results, and we're all humans, so you're going to put some kind of perspective on it. Uh, so the ego, an example of the ego would be ego being positive, is if you train your mind to listen to, oh, no, we're not even going to get there. The ego being positive would say, I am a good person. My ego tells me that I'm a good person. So as I go through the world, whenever I'm presented with an opportunity to be a bad person, the ego is going to be like, oh, I'm not that kind of guy. I can't be found doing negative things. And that's your ego professing its projecting its trained perception of yourself. So that's an example of it being good, because it drives you to be to strive to do better every day. So that's an example of a positive use of the ego. A negative use of the ego would say, we'll do something simple. I don't dance. If you have convinced yourself that you are a tough guy or some shit, and you don't dance, you just can't be found dancing. I'm too cool to fucking dance. Why is that negative? Is because you are precluding yourself from positive experiences. We're using dance at this particular time. What is dancing? I'll speak about me personally. I spent a vast majority of my life not dancing for that very reason. I'm too cool to be found dancing. I don't want to, or specifically, I don't want to look stupid. I think that I'm too cool to look stupid. And there's like a whole fucking trail of negative thoughts associated with that, or negative consequences associated with that, because you're mind fucking yourself. Because one, if you don't ever try, you failed before you started. That's one thing. Two, if you are too scared to try for fear of failure, you're being a coward. So, two? Yeah, I said two. Yeah. And that's gonna fucking stay with you. That's gonna stay with you. Like, for me, I was at one point in my youth or some shit. I was at some kind of, let's say it was a rave or some kind of fucking dancing area where everybody was dancing, and there was just like herds of beautiful women dancing, and I couldn't bring myself to go out there and dance, and because of that, I didn't get to communicate effectively with any of these beautiful women. And I remember that. I don't know how long ago it was, but it was a long time ago, and I still remember that shit. And that remains with me. So that goes back to 5 minutes of discomfort is worth a lifetime of regret. If you take that single moment and sign off that discomfort and just say, fuck it, I'm going out there, you no longer have to live with the lifetime of regret associated with not doing that. So the same thing with the ego, and we're talking about dance, which is something super simple. But the ego affects a lot of things. Because if you're like, I'm a tough guy, I don't I don't do art or some shit. You're preventing yourself from indulging in the opportunity that you could have had by doing art, and it's possible that you will regret that decision. Or like fucking learn the guitar. Like you want, I fucking look at it. There's a guitar right there. I'm trying to figure out how to play the guitar. I don't fucking know how to play the guitar. That requires a certain aspect of humility to be like, I don't fucking know how to play the guitar. And what if I'm bad? What if I suck and blah blah blah? What if I can't do it? All that shit. That is your ego talking you out of doing it. And whereas if you just fucking do it and sign off whether or not somebody like who's there to judge whether or not you're bad? And if they are, like you're at a dancing place and fucking you go out there and dance like a fucking you know like an uncoordinated Urkel or some shit. The only amount, like the weight of how much you give a shit is your decision. Does that make sense? And the only people who are going to be judging you are people who were in a position to be judging you in the first place. If they're not dancing themselves, of course they're going to talk shit because you just beat them, bro. You just fucking beat them, like right in front of them. And they're not going to like that shit. So, and that goes into a whole nother subject of you can't be your best self if you are concerned on how you're going to affect other people, or rather how other people's judgments are going to affect you. Does that make sense? Like for this shit, like if I'm sitting here concerned that every one of you watching this is like, oh Jesus, this is I can't believe he's doing this. This is cringy as fuck and fucking whatever the fuck you're gonna say. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't. If I was held up on that thought, I wouldn't do it. And if I didn't do it, then I wouldn't be able to share these thoughts. And if these thoughts help one motherfucker in the world, I thwarted my own opportunity to help that one person. And that one person goes along their life without being helped. And it's a fucking whole butterfly effect. All from my ego being concerned about other people's projections upon who I am. Who the fuck are they to tell me who I am? They are not. They are not in a position to be judging who I am because they are not me, you know? And so that's an example. That is the ego, the role, the benefit of the ego. You can talk yourself into being a better person. Or but the problem. I mean, there could be a problem with that. If you have yourself convinced that you're such a good person that you're infallible, you're just fucking stupid. Because that is an impossibility. Nobody's perfect, and to believe so is excessive pride, at least, and none of that is conducive to growth at all. You always must remain in a position that is humble and know that you know nothing more than what you think you know. So yeah, I don't know. As I speak, when I say things, I bring up other subjects of discussions like the value of ignorance and the ultimate understanding of knowing that you know not, and therefore are always in a position of learning. That is a fucking crucial position to remain in. As soon as you become unwilling to grow, unwilling to learn, unwilling to correct yourself or whatever, you are stunted at that point, and you will remain stunted until you can move past it. It's just that easy. So the ego is dangerous, but it's valuable, it's useful, and the moral of the story is don't ever let it hold you up. Don't ever let your ego keep you from being who your ego has convinced you. If your ego has convinced you that you're too cool to dance, you are inherently not cool enough to dance because your ego thinks you're cooler than that. But by dancing and proving your ego wrong, you are actually cooler than you were before. Mindfuck. Think about it. I love you. Fucking don't let your ego fuck with you. Do you got to do uncomfortable shit? Step outside of your comfort zone, and there's nothing cool about being average. So the more you can sign off your ego and accept what is and accept who you are and display that unapologetically, the less your ego really becomes important, and at the same time its overinflated sense of self is actually kind of fulfilled in a ass backwards way. Does that make sense? Because your ego's going to tell you you're cool when you're not, but when you actually are cool, your ego isn't cool enough to tell you whether or not you're cool. I don't know. Whatever. I love you. Next video.